Good evening, y'all, and welcome back to Apron Strings. I'm going to cook something today that y'all have seen me cook in the very beginning, but I've had several requests for me to make my chicken and dumplings for you, and I'm going to make some for my family this afternoon, so I thought I'll just turn the camera on, show y'all again how I do it. My mama made these dumplings all my life, and then when I got married and got older, I started making them for family gatherings, and then Mama didn't make them anymore. She just let Gay do it. They're not hard, and a lot of people have a lot of different ingredients in their dumplings, but the ones Mother always made, and there was never any left, is just flour, salt, cold water, and lard or Crisco. So I put some chicken pieces in the crock pot and cooked them, and picked the chicken off the bone and put the broth in the ice box. So I've got the broth heated over here with the chicken in it. So that's already been done. But it's a given that if you're making chicken and dumplings, you got to cook you some chicken. Now, rule of thumb, if you're boiling chicken pieces, don't boil it more than 45 minutes. It'll be stringy. Probably 30 minutes, you can cut it into pieces and have more firm shapes of meat in there. Now this is all to pieces because I cooked it overnight in the crock pot. But it tastes so good, and the juice, the broth was like gelatin. It's got, because of the bones it was leg quarters. So it made wonderful, rich broth. So I make my dumplings in my food processor. If you don't have a food processor, you can use your mixer, a hand mixer, or you can do them by hand. But the food processor just has its own little way of doing, and I'll show y'all what I'm talking about when we get over there. So I've got it set up, and I've already put my flour in. Now, Mother's recipe is to 1 cup of flour, you want 1 teaspoon of salt, 1/3 of cup of cold water, and 1/4 of a cup of lard or Crisco. We use Crisco. So I make 3 or 4 times that much to make a nice big pot of dumplings for the family. So I'm going to 4-time it again today, which is what I usually do. And we sometimes have a little bit left over depending on how many's here. But today there's going to be about 5 people eating, 5 or 6. So we probably will eat all the dumplings. I've also got some of my canned green beans cooking. And all I did on them was snip some bacon up and cook it until the fat had rendered and it was starting to brown. And I just opened my beans up and put them in there and added a little bit of onion and garlic powder and a tinge of salt, and I'm just letting them simmer. They're easy to cook. Canned beans that you buy, you would cook the same way. So, and I have a recipe, I have a video on cooking green beans, and I'll try to link it down below if I don't forget. But if I forget, you can look it up in the videos. Let's get over here to the island and get our dumplings mixed up, and then we'll come back over here to the butcher block and get the dumplings rolled out. Now, I generally say the Booze block. The brand of this butcher block is Booze, John Booze, B-O-O-S. That's why I call it Booze block. It's not booze like you drink, okay? My cousin picked at me about it. So I needed to clarify that. Now I've got 4 cups of all-purpose flour in my Cuisinart food processor, and I'm going to add my salt. So I'm going to snap this on, and I'm just going to pulse it to mix the salt in. Also, according to the humidity, that kind of denotes how much water that you might put in. And it's really humid here today. We had a pouring rain a while ago. Now I've got 1 block of Crisco, which is a cup. That's just easier than measuring it out of the big can. And I just usually have this on hand just to make my dumplings with. Now I'm going to put the lid on, and I'm going to cook. I'm going to whiz this in the food processor until this flour looks like cornmeal. just real mealy in little bitty pieces, and then we'll stream the water in until it forms a ball all up in one clump. It'll just kind of hop up there in a ball. Then I'll feel of it to see how firm it is, and if it's right, which it's usually right spot on, we'll go roll them out and start getting some dumplings cooked. Let me see what that looks like. Okay. Can y'all see how mealy that looks? It don't look like flour. It's kind of mealy and little bitty hunky pieces. That's what you're looking for. That means that your Crisco has is in there right. So I'm going to do it just a little bit more since I took the blade out and put it back in. Okay, it's well mixed. Now my water, I didn't put ice in it because we live in the country, and my water from the water well is ice cold this time of the year. But normally, if your water is just kind of warm, put some ice in it, because you want your water real cold when you mix it in with your flour and Crisco and salt. So I'm just going to turn it on and let it mix. Like when you make bread and it begins to clean the sides of the bowl, then you know it's ready. And this is about the same concept. When your dough cleans the side of the bowl, and see how it formed a big ball to one side, that tells you that it's ready. It's firm enough to roll out, it's not real sticky, and it took 1 1/3 cups of water. So now we'll get over there to the butcher block and get these dumplings rolled out. Okay, I've got my sifter here, and I've put a little flour down, and then I'm just going to kind of divide my dough into 4 pieces and roll it out 1 piece at a time and cut it. And you want to have your broth boiling. If you don't have it boiling, your dumplings are going to fall apart, and it's going to be like a thickened broth or a soup. You're not going to have good firm dumplings. You have to have your water boiling, and you want to keep it at not a rolling boil, but a good hot boil for about 20 minutes to cook them. But you have to stir them occasionally, and you don't just get in there and stir. You just kind of push them to the side and push them to the side. That way you're not breaking them up. So I'll show y'all when I get them over there, but I want to tell you to get that in your mind. You don't stir your dumplings like you're whipping egg whites. You just move them around a little bit to keep them from sticking, and to keep from sticking to each other and making a big blob of dough. I'm just going to pinch it apart about 4 different things, and that makes it easier to roll out, to not have, see, that's about what 1 batch makes a cup, okay? And I like to kind of form it a little bit in a disc, and I always go ahead and sprinkle flour on the bottom and the top, and I flour my rolling pin a little bit. You want to roll these out to less than 1/4 of an inch thick. You don't want a big old thick doughy, a big old thick one, and you don't want them so thin that they fall apart. So a little less than 1/4 of an inch is a good gauge to go by. Get out of my way. And you want a little bit of flour on them when you put them in your pot, and the reason is that helps to thicken your juice a little bit. I have a little roller here that I got from Pampered Chef, and this will change out to a serrated looking one, like pink and shears, but I always just use the regular one. So that tells you that you could use a pizza cutter to do this. Just makes the process easier. My mama didn't have one of these, and she just used a butcher knife. And I remember as a kid, she didn't have a rolling pin, and she used there used to be a place up out of Shepherd where we lived when I was a kid, and they sold cider. I guess it was homemade apple cider. It was good. And it came in these tall, anyhow, Mother emptied one of those jars and screwed the end back on it, and that was her rolling pin. I remember her using that. I remember one time we went up there and Daddy got some barbecue. He never did go get any more. He said, I believe they kill crows and barbecue them. I don't believe that's chicken. And it was rare that we got to get bought food. Mama made everything we ate. But we didn't get any more of their barbecued chicken because Daddy thought it was a crow instead of a chicken. I don't know if it was tough or what made him come to that idea, but I can't think of the name of the place, but it was on 59 north of Shepherd. And I was just a little girl, so that was many, many years ago. You know, back when Abraham Lincoln was in my school class. I wasn't even in school yet, actually. Okay, I've got my broth, bringing it back up to a boil. And I'm going to get this first batch in, and there'll be whoops, don't lose any of them. That's precious cargo right there. These can be cooking while I roll out the next batch. So I'm going to walk over here to the stove. Well, actually, I'm not, because it ain't boiling yet. Y'all are just in the kitchen with me while I cook today. That's all I know to tell you. So, flour and all. Now, I'll just go ahead and roll out some more while my broth comes back up to a boil. Roll them and roll them. Get them good and thin. When you cut them, y'all saw me squeezing some of them down a little more a while ago. Sometimes at the very edge, I don't roll them out like, I guess enough, I don't know. So I'll have to thin them down a little bit when I pick them up. But okay. And sometimes I'll sprinkle some onion or garlic powder on this and give it another little roll. Let me show you what I'm talking about. This is onion powder. And if you just sprinkle you a little bit on there like that, and give them another little roll to poke it down in your dough, it adds some extra flavor to them. Now I know y'all are surprised that I would be using onion powder since I seldom do. I put it on everything except something that's sweet. Okay. We're not up to a boil yet, so let me gather these up. Sometimes I'll have me a little pile of flour over to the side, and I'll just flop them over in it to get some flour all over them. You don't want enough that you're going to have little balls of flour in there that's not dissolved, but just a little bit on your dough, it just thickens your broth. Now sometimes if my broth, if I don't feel like it's rich enough, I'll add some cream of chicken soup. But this broth was almost like gelatin because I cooked it so long with the bony pieces of chicken that I'm not going to add that, but I will add a little bit of cream to it to make it creamy. Mama didn't do that. I just started doing that and I liked it, and I've just continued to do it. So sometimes, even if it ain't broke, you can fix it just a little bit. Okay, I'm going to roll out another one. And you know what cleans all this flour up just so easy? It's a bench scraper. I just scrape it all up together, and then I use that like a little dustpan, and I pick it up, and it's easy cleanup. Sometimes I'll take some wax paper down, or parchment, and that way I can just kind of roll it up and throw it away. But that bench scraper does wonders for cleaning up a mess like this. Let's get some of this flour up on there. Okay, it's starting to boil, so by the time I get these finished, I guess it'll be ready to put them all in. And not one of them can brag that they've been there a lot longer than the others. This is definitely comfort food, y'all. It reminds you of holidays and family reunion and all of that. We're not going to have dumplings for Christmas this next week, or this week, so I decided that I'd fix some with this chicken. I think we're going to have a sandwich smorgasbord for Christmas. I'll have everything to go on them like a Subway, or we like that, and then we'll have cheese balls and chips and dip, and we'll make it a party with gifts. That'll be fun. Not a bunch of gifts, but a few. You gotta have something for them grandkids, and your big kids like something too. I'm a big kid. I still like to get presents. That's fun. I want to see if I can move this over here while I'm a-doozing. Can y'all see that is boiling? Get my spoon. See, it's boiling really good. So I'm going to drop my dumplings in, and you don't drop them on top of each other. You try to give them some space. Move back and give them some room so they can kind of start cooking a little bit without being on top of each other and gumming and sticking together. I love the consistency of these. They're firm enough to handle, but they're not going to be tough to eat. They'll be good. You just keep dropping the little fellers in, and sometimes it seems endless. And see, for 1 or 2 people, that would make a nice pot of dumplings, just 1 cup of flour. But I got more little people than that to feed, so I'm going to go ahead and put some more in. And what I may do, if I think I have enough, I'm going to layer these on wax paper and freeze them. And then if we want to make a little pot of dumplings, I can just pull out enough for just me and Troy. Because they do freeze just like you can freeze pie crust. And I have to add some black pepper to it. Dumplings got to have black pepper in them. Now, do y'all remember what I said I seasoned my broth with? Salt, and I'm going to put black pepper and onion and garlic powder. Easy, easy, easy. I usually use 3-to-1 ratio on the onion and garlic powder. So if you're going to use a tablespoon of onion powder, put you a teaspoon of garlic powder. And that goes for your green beans or whatever you're doing. That's just a good ratio, rule of thumb. Y'all see how I just kind of shoved them around? I didn't stir and stir and stir. I don't want them all broke to pieces. I want them to stand alone. Practice makes perfect. So if you keep making these, the first ones may not turn out just right, but you'll get the hang of it. Especially if you have a food processor to mix them up in, and you can see them turn into that mealy looking mixture. See, I told you Mama always used her little Sunbeam Mix Master until she got a KitchenAid. And then she used her KitchenAid, and then I think maybe the last few years Mama had a food processor, but I don't think she made her dumplings in it. Well, I know she did, because I think I let my nephew have it when she passed away. I've always liked kitchen gadgets, so when the Cuisinart food processors first came out, I got to get one. When microwaves first came out, I was one of the first ones around here that had a microwave, and oh my goodness, we ate lots of baked potatoes. That was the coolest thing. Okay, I've got one more bit to roll out, so I'll bring y'all back in a minute and show you all of them cooking. I'm going to show y'all how Mama would do it. She'd cut her a long strip like this, and she'd just get over there to the pot and break her some off and put it in there. She didn't have a bunch of little pieces that she used. So these last ones, that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to break it off like she did and put it in there. Let's get those down in there good. Now I'm not going to have a lot of extra sauce on them, broth. You have to keep the bottom stirred, but you don't, see, you just push along. You don't whiz around. So after they've been cooked a while, it's going to absorb the broth, I can tell you, because I don't have a whole bunch in there. Just keep putting these in. Cut that down just a little bit. I want it to keep boiling though. Okay, here's the last 3 pieces. Now this is my bench scraper that I was talking about, and I just use it. And if you don't have one of these, you can use the flat side of a big butcher knife for the same thing, or a case knife. Because if you try to wipe all this flour up, you're going to have paste if you use a wet dish rag. And I don't like that. Now this flour is clean, so I'm just going to sift it and put it back. Well, I better not, because some of that onion powder just might have come off on it, and I wouldn't want that in a cake. But that's how you do it, just like that. And then I get a paper towel and wet it and wipe this up, because I don't like to wash paste out of my dish rag. So anyway, I'll bring y'all back when the dumplings are done and show you what they look like, and we might have to taste one. And if you haven't seen it before, now you know how to make good old Southern soul food, chicken and dumplings. I've scraped most of it up, and I'm just going to wipe with this paper towel. Then I'll get the dish rag and finish it. but it sure makes cleanup easier and you don't have all that in your dish rag. Just another little idea. Well, it's not the prettiest pot of dumplings I've ever made, but they sure do taste good. So we're eating on this fancy china right here, and I'm sure the kids will volunteer to wash dishes tonight. That's what they usually do when we use this my best china like this, chinette. Okay, friends, now you have another video of how I make our good chicken and dumplings and green beans, and that's all we're having tonight. Now, if I was going to have a big old bunch here, we'd probably have corn on the cob and potato salad and other stuff to go with it. But we're just going to have our dumplings and green beans and be thankful to have good homemade food to eat. The good Lord bless y'all. Come back in a day or two and we'll have probably some Christmas goodies. Don't forget to, well, this will probably come out after that. If the apron drawing has not already occurred, be sure that you go and comment and watch the video and see what you have to do to be entered into the drawing. The Lord bless you, and I'll see you soon.